All right, we just finished our demo for assignment 2. And assignment 2 is a composite of at least 5 different sources informed by a sketch we make of a fantasy creature. And we try to make it as believable as possible by transitioning between the different elements, by matching up to an anatomy that we understand, utilizing our sketch, and by learning more and more about how we can control the pixels in a raster program. So this is the one I came up with. To turn it in, we had to save it as what's called a PNG. And a PNG, I have it on the desktop, I'm going to move it in, is what we used for our emojis, which makes it so it's free floating. It's an online format that compresses the image, saves space, does not support multiple layers, but does support transparency. So this PNG is like a sticker. That is necessary for our next assignment. So if I go to next, and we go to the next unit, which is unit 6, this is what I call the creaturescape. Because we're going to put your creatures into your landscapes. Now, if you never created a landscape, you can take your creature from assignment 2 and you can put it into a found landscape. Because it's all about making the creature match the landscape. Or if you never completed your creature, but you have your fantasy landscape, you can take any creature you find online at high enough resolution, like a dinosaur or something, or a Game of Thrones dragon, and you can put it into your landscape. And it's all about making the creature asset, the figurative asset, match the setting asset of the landscape. Now, Unit 6 is pretty straightforward. There's only one thing due, but that thing is not an exercise and it's not an assignment. It's our first proving ground. Proving grounds are what are going to earn us our badge by the end of the semester. So if you want to know more about that, you can go to modules. And some of you are not just into getting degrees and getting, college credit for your courses. You're also collecting these certifications and these skills badges as you go. So if you go to the very end of our modules, there's a badge module. That's because badges follow different rules than getting credit for your associate's degree or for a certification for social media and digital marketing. So the badges, it starts with this, and you can look through this if you have more questions. This is not stuff written by me. They give you all this information about what a digital badge is. They're called micro-credentials. What's nice is the digital badge that we are earning in this class, or have the potential to learn, is creative problem solving. And that's one of the most sought after of these 21st century skills badges, no matter what career you want to go into. Very few classes offer this badge because it's all about being creative, right? And thinking through problems that way. So this is my page. I added that little thing. But if we move through this, you can see what the requirements are. Again, they are from this external certification of a badge. These are the requirements, not just from me or instructor. We have to learn to exercise convergent and divergent thinking. That means we have to think along with the ways people have usually thought about things, and we have to know how to diverge from that, like think outside of the box to generate fresh ideas. We need to identify patterns by making sense of the data we have in front of us, recognize commonalities among seemingly unrelated situations, and then frame novel problems in familiar terms. This is actually the one that this first proving ground is really going to focus on. We have to manage ambiguity, which is really tough. This is going to relate around our midterm critique. And we're going to apply an iterative process to test our ideas, which we'll do for our final project. So that's just some information about it. This first one, proving ground number 1, relates to a creaturescape composite. It's the only proving ground where it's a fully separate assignment rather than integrated into an existing assignment. So let's go back to our unit modules where it's introduced. So by the end of the semester, you want to have earned all 4 of the problem-solving assignments by getting 100% on them. And if you can get 100% on all 4 of those, you can earn your creative problem-solving badge and put that on your LinkedIn page or on your resume. This is what this project requires. So there is an imaging component to it, but that's just one part of the rubric. The imaging component is you take your fantasy creature and you integrate it into an environment. And it's meant to be your own fantasy environment and your own fantasy creature. But like I said, if you're missing one of those or not able to finish one of those, you can find someone else's pixels for either the creature or the environment, but not for both, right? I want you to at least use this opportunity to finish off assignment 1 or assignment 2 to your contentment. In order to make that creature match that environment, we have to change the lighting. We have to change the angle of the anatomy so it looks like it's in that environment. And we might have to change environmental factors. So in this one, you can see that it's very foggy and you can actually see the steam it's a cold day, the steam's coming out of the nostrils of this creature. The second requirement for the proving ground, this is all on a rubric, is that we need to identify and make sense of the data. And that's what this sentence is about. It's not even a sentence. It's just labeling your image. So this image, you have to label what its physical dimensions are. So this one's 18 inches by 12.5 inches. What its pixel resolution is. This is 300 pixels per inch. And then knowing those two things as your data points, you have to say whether it's good enough for print resolution or whether it's only good enough for screen resolution, right? If it's below 8 by 10 at 300 pixels per inch, then it's only good enough for screen resolution. And then the third requirement, this kind of relates to our presentation critique where we were saying, who is this creature for? Is you have to write just a paragraph or so about how your creature lives in this environment, right? What does it eat? What are the threats to it? How does it shelter? All those things are going to get you to make connections between these unrelated things, the creature and your environment. And that might help you make some of your decisions as well. So this is one of my past examples. Here is a past student example. They made this rainbow kind of floating fish creature, this helium fish that farts rainbows. And they have this very psychedelic mushroom background, right? Where they push their hue saturation probably a little too far. But when they put it all together, they tried to match the lighting condition and the angle. Even though it's a floating creature, you can see the cast shadow underneath. So they did what they could to match that. They met that requirement. And then they identified their data. And their data was, their image was larger than 8 by 10. It was 9 by 12 inches. But unfortunately, it was only 72 pixels per inch, which meant that it wasn't good enough for screen resolution. So they had to write that it was good for, or not good enough for print resolution, So they had to write that it was good enough for screen resolution. And then their explanation was this creature is a free-floating scavenger of the sulfurous gases rich environment that's low gravity. It shelters underneath a canopy of giant mushroom forests and expels a phosphorescent vapor as a byproduct that contributes to the rainbow-colored skies. So it's trying to make connections between how the creature lives and why the environment looks the way it does. Here are 3 other examples. Some are print resolution, some are screen resolution. It all depends on the data for the image. And then they all have an explanation of how that creature would survive in that environment. All right. So we need 3 things to do this project. And we'll be working on it next class. This is just the introduction. So let me get it started. I just finished assignment 2, so I'm going to mark that green. And I'm going to start a new folder. And this is called Proving Ground number 1. I did not come up with the name Proving Ground. That's part of the badge credentialing. Okay, so now, and I'm working on it, so I'll mark it yellow. So I need 2 things for Proving Ground number 1. First of all, I need my creature, but I don't need my PSD file for my creature. I need the sticker, the PNG file. So what I'm going to do is move that Proving Ground folder out to the desktop for the time being. And then I'm going to open up assignment 2, and I'm going to drag out the PNG that I just submitted for assignment 2. And I'm going to hold down Option. Option means that it will duplicate it. You see that little plus sign? So I'm making a copy of that. And I'm going to put that into my Proving Ground number 1 folder. So that's the first element you need. You need a creature to put into a landscape. Second element, I need a landscape. For that, I go to assignment 1, and I'm going to use my PSD, because my PSD is the one with multiple layers, and it's my most improved landscape. So I hold down Option, I save that to the desktop, it makes a duplicate of it. I don't want to accidentally overwrite my fantasy landscape. Then I move that into Proving Ground 1. Now, how does this project work? I'm going to change the name of my assignment 1 to Proving Ground 1. And then I open it up. And you'll see the new name on your PSD file in the upper left-hand corner. So now it's Karl Proving Ground 1 instead of Assignment 1, Popeye Shipwreck Landscape. And I had explained how I had improved this one a little bit since I turned it in for Assignment 1 by adding some new foreground elements, right? And pushing back the background a little bit. But now I have opportunities to improve it even more. So I'm going to go to my topmost visible layer, and I'm going to bring in my creature by just dragging and dropping in my PNG. It will come in as a smart object. And right now, it's on top of everything, right? The first thing I can do is I can hit return to place it, keep it as a smart object, but then I can just start sinking it down through the layers using Command left bracket. So I can push it behind the foreground. I can push it behind the other foreground. Right? And maybe I think, oh, that's kind of where I want to put it. You know, in the middle ground, maybe coming out of the water. Like it's really big. That's one option. I'll make a duplicate. Now with this duplicate, maybe I want this one to be a lot smaller, but not too small, and perched right in the foreground, right here. Like maybe in this little boat wreckage. I think that works pretty well. So I have kind of these two options. But here's the deal. Whatever I choose for where I put my creature, and I'm going to pose them and make the angle of their anatomy fit the environment, and I'm going to make the lighting and stuff all match as best I can. But I want my creature to take up around 25% or more of the landscape. So if I choose this, which looks pretty good to me, I think, I want to choose a framing of that landscape that makes my creature a little bit bigger. So what does that mean? It means I'm going to take my guides and I'm going to frame it in, crop it a little bit so that my creature takes up more space within it. Does that make sense? Takes my creature from being about 15% to my creature being more like 25%. Now, a way you can do that with the crop lines is when you use the crop tool, it gives you what are called third lines. So you'll see these 9 squares, kind of like when you warp something. And in a good composition, you'll have your focal point at the intersection of those third lines. So right there, right here. So this is a pretty good positioning within this composition. And you can tell from that, it's like a CAPTCHA. If your creature takes up 4 out of those 9 squares, then your creature is big enough. If the creature only takes 2 out of those 9 squares, like overlaps with 2 out of those 9 squares, it's not big enough. If it only overlaps with 1 out of those 9 squares, it's not big enough. So you have to find the composition that works. So I can do that. I could even do something like this. I'm trying to go back before I cropped. But crop will make me do it first and then hit Command Z. Okay, so I can even say, okay, let's duplicate him. So I have 3 different options for placement now. And I haven't even flipped him.